Hello and welcome back to On the Daily. In this episode, we are chatting with this is her second time on the Daily. We got my friend Jocelyn Kelly Reid on the show. This is like I'm going to let her explain herself, but the way that I explain Jocelyn to people is she is the biggest money queen I've ever met, and like no one talks about money like this woman. And I love you for so many reasons, but just the ease at which you talk about money and wealth and the transparency around it, I think it is such a gift, and it's just really, really, really impressive. And I'm just so happy to have you here today. So welcome.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That means so much coming from you. What a
Well, you know,
compliment.
so this is the other thing, y'all. We are actually like launching episodes the same day, so you could literally go over to her show and like hear me on her show that we recorded, and that's like all about human design and astrology. And what we found out in that episode is like Jocelyn and I have very similar charts, but we complement, like it's almost like very complementary charts in a lot of ways too. And it was so fun getting to read your chart because I was like, oh yes, this makes sense.
It's like the best episode. And also, you just dropped. So I was like, wait, what? How are our charts so similar?
I know. Like
So
we're
crazy.
both Scorpio rising. We're both like Leo midheavens.
And we had all of these gates in common.
All the gates in the 11 and 12 gates. Yeah. Yeah.
So crazy.
Well, we're talking
Meant to
about,
be.
yeah, I mean, today we're going to talk about like my favorite thing and a lot of my people's favorite thing, which is money. And that is your favorite thing to talk about.
100%.
So tell us, like, not like a whole book, obviously. I mean, you want to read the book of Jocelyn, you need to go listen to her show and like follow her on Instagram because like she shares her story a lot. Um, you don't need to share your book here. They can do their own homework and go and figure it out themselves. But just you weren't always this incredible woman running a multi-million dollar business. So share like, how'd you get here?
The Cliff's Notes.
Yeah, the Cliff
So
Notes.
the Cliff's Notes would be that I was like I call it like the basic B corporate queen. You know what I mean? In my 20s.
Yeah.
I was working for BlackRock. I worked in finance. I was partying with my friends. I had a boyfriend. I lived in San Francisco. I was just kind of like, I was not spiritual. I was not awake. I was just literally just on that straight and narrow,
Yeah. In the
on the
grind.
straight and narrow, but also like having fun, probably too much fun. And just doing I was like, it almost felt like that in hindsight, it was like that first phase where you're like walking out exactly what everybody told you that you were preparing for.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize that in the moment. It's programmed in the moment. But
Right.
in hindsight, I was like, oh, she's on the right track, right?
Right. On paper.
And then,
Like on paper, it was all
on paper, on the right track. And also internally, there wasn't any friction around it. It
no,
was just like, this is weird as
normal.
living,
Yeah,
totally
normal.
normal living. And then all of a sudden, we were not living anymore. Like, honestly, nothing really prompted it other than I was redating a guy that I had dated in college. And we always would have this like on again, off again thing.
Mm.
And he lived in LA. And I started going to LA a lot. And I really always hated cold weather. And I don't like San Francisco's weather, but I was kind of like from the Bay Area and had a good job and just wound up there. And then I got this thing in my mind that like I really wanted to like move to LA, not knowing my Pluto runs through Los Angeles.
Right.
So all of a sudden, I went from totally just like doing my thing to like I became so deeply unhappy. And then the universe started like pushing me out. Like I got bed bugs. I got like
Oh.
just all this crazy stuff. When you're being like pushed to make a change.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember because I was like in my late 20s then. It was a while ago, but all these things happened. I was like, I'm leaving. Broke up with a boyfriend, didn't want to do the job anymore. I remember looking around and being like, what am I going to be a middle manager and
Right.
sitting in a cubicle? Like, where are we going? Like, I was like, where are we going? Oh, and in this environment, actually, the more you get promoted, the more you work.
Right.
It's not less, it's more.
Right.
And then I just remember I was joking with my friends at work that I was going to like write a blog called Bloated in a Pencil Skirt ab-
Wait,
about
you should
finance
do
lessons.
that. You should
Well, now
definitely trademark that before somebody takes it.
I know. Well, now I have nothing to say because it's not my life.
Right. Right.
But it was so good. But anyway, left, moved to LA. We had a total dark night of the soul. Then I was dating another guy who was like one of those like karmic, these ones where it's like your hooks are just in each other and deep in each other's traumas. And it just surfaced all traumas. I didn't even know what a trauma was. Right.
Oh.
I didn't. And like I started having a crazy spiritual awakening. I became addicted to psychics. I was addicted to him. It was very on and off. I was hearing voices, like all the crazy things, all the crazies all at once. I burned through all my money, burned through my retirement, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Everything just got, as soon as I moved, everything just started getting like ripped out at once to honestly just bring me. It was like I had to get like stripped down.
It was almost like a cyclone. Like you just kind of get thrown into this. Was that like 27?
I was 29.
So you were in your Saturn return.
Yeah. So it was like I totally just got stripped of every area where I previously had security.
Mm.
And then without all of those securities, I did not know who I was. Like it was scary. I did not know who I was at all. Like I was so anxious. I could not sleep. Like I was literally like, I didn't even know I had emotionally addictive patterns. Like I didn't know any of this. I'm sure I displayed them, but like previously, but also I was always in relationships and they weren't like that. Like this was just a crazy. So anyways, all that happened, ended in a health crisis. I did get myself back situated some on the career front. That took me to New York for like a work trip. I was like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be in New York. Didn't have the money to move to New York, manifested the money to move to New York, got the last job that I ever had. And that was also kind of like the start of me really like healing, and looking at my stuff. And I was becoming more awake because when I was sick, I had fibroid surgery. Like I had like 37 fibroids and open surgery. It's kind of like having a C-section. I made myself that sick in Los Angeles.
Wow.
But because I could not work, I was like bleeding for months for them to try to get me to stop bleeding so I could even have the surgery.
Yeah.
And that I found Louise Hay, and she was like the first person that I really like connected into. And I was like, oh, I created this. Okay. Once I realized that I was responsible for everything that was happening, that was enough for me to wake up. And I saw that the spiritual reason for fibroids was a romantic shame. And I was like, well, that makes sense for how I've been living my life.
Right.
And I had nothing to do but lay on the sofa and stare at myself and go, how did we end up here?
Yeah.
What's going on? Because it was like 5 years of just drama.
Yeah.
And that's the very short version. And so when I came to New York, I started just realizing, like I learned more about manifestation and its connection to our patterning, right?
Yeah.
And so I really started to actually look at my family stuff, my lineage stuff, and like all the different things. And then it's almost like the more that you do that, the more that you wake up to who you really are instead of you playing out other people's patterns, whether you know them or not, or whether they came from society as your status quo and then wondering why life isn't going well.
Yeah.
Like I always say, like your path to truth, fulfillment, alignment, wealth, love, all of it is based in soul truth, right?
Right. Right.
The problem is we're so disconnected to it. You know what happens.
Yeah.
And so then I just started looking at my stuff and I remember sitting on the sofa before I took my last job. And I literally remember because I just moved into this cute little apartment in Cobble Hill and it was snow. I moved in December. It was like snowing in New York and it was so pretty. Especially coming from LA where it's like hot all the time. Like I was in love.
All the other New Yorkers are like, this is fucking miserable. And you're like,
well, now I'm like, okay, moving on. Next season, please.
Yeah. You're like,
At least we get all 4, which is nice. But no, I was so happy. And then I was like, this is the last job I'm ever going to take. But I had no idea what I wanted to do. I wasn't sitting around even going, I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur. I just had this moment sitting on the sofa. Like, I think it was a message more than it was a decision.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember having entrepreneurial fantasies before that. I didn't even have space for any type. I was not vision casting other than getting myself to the next city was like,
yeah,
that would be the vision, but I wouldn't have a vision and obsessing about whoever during that point in time. But like, that was kind of it. And then I manifested, I remember this consulting job. My aunt was like a big exec at Coke. And when she retired, she was doing like executive coaching. And I remember we were at the beach on family vacation and she was telling me the kind of stuff that she was working with them on. And I was like, I know all this stuff because I had spent 7 years in corporate finance, or not corporate finance, with a corporate job in finance at a
Yep.
financial firm. And then like the rest of the time, like working for all these startups and yada, yada. And I like, it just hit me how much I knew that I didn't realize that I had known. And
Yeah.
then a friend from one of my prior jobs like reached out to me for this like consulting opportunity for like the design firm that she was working with was opening a showroom, and I had been a buyer, and they didn't know how to like do all the things and like what, what people actually want to pay for and like all this different stuff. And I remember flying out and like doing my presentation to them, and that paid me, I think I charged like, I remember like writing my little invoice. I didn't even know how to write an invoice. I had to like Google it.
How to write an invoice.
I was like, what? Yeah. And I remember sitting there being like, what should I charge? And I was like, I didn't really know because I'd never,
Yeah.
and I was in a job. I was in like a corporate I was like in a different job in the design world. I think I charged like 2,500, but I feel like that's pretty good
Pretty
considering
good.
I had no idea what I was doing and
That's
like
more than most people are charging for their first thing.
anything. Exactly. And they were
Yeah.
so easy about it. And I was like, okay. And I had them pay for like my travel. And then I remember because that was like my New York rent also. And so when I went and I connected with them, I was like, wow, I just got paid my New York rent from a few hours of work that were really fun, where the people were appreciative, no friction. And I'm just getting paid to like use my brain, like to speak, which is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
So then that just set me off where I was like, and I was already kind of like, I was already like very plugged into energetics and all these things as I'd gone through such a crazy psychic awakening. So obviously
Yeah.
that got me curious and more open. And once that gate opens, like you can't close it even if you want to. It's
Mm-mm.
just more, it's like grounded now. I'm not like hearing voices like I used to.
Right. Right.
Um, which is, I'm good with this.
I literally tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, you want to do this work? Everyone needs to and should do this work. But when you decide to do this work, you're not going to just kind of do this work. You're either going to do it all, and every single like skeleton you have is going to come out of the closet, and you're going to be faced with all
Like
of it.
every
Not
single
just the
one.
ones that you want to come out of the closet. They're all
Yeah.
coming out, and it's going to hurt like hell.
And
And then
ones
you'll
you
be
didn't know
fine.
you had.
Right.
So yeah, and then I was like, I want to help people. I don't really want to help like firms. I
Yeah.
really want to help people. And I kept getting channeled this message like intuitive abundance, which is interesting. It kind of makes sense, right?
Hmm.
Looking back.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I was just remember being in the kitchen with my friends and I was like, okay, like that's it. And then I just got on the internet and I just started sharing all the spiritual messages that were coming through me all the time.
Yeah.
Like I had and I remember like because I didn't have a coach. Like, I didn't have a coach at first. Like, I didn't even
Mm-mm.
know what coaching was. I
No.
didn't know. Like, it's so different now. And that wasn't that long ago.
Right.
That was only like at the very end of 2019, but I wasn't exposed to that world. I was more just like on my healing journey. And I was like, well, I'm going to just share what I have to say on the internet. And then I remember, I think it was like Maston Kip. Somebody had a little thing for like spiritual. It wasn't even, I think it was free where they
Mm-hmm.
told me I was like, oh, like I should have a payment plan. Oh, what's that? It was like just piecing together the most like basic information.
Right.
But like I did it. And like I did very well, very quickly, but like at first it was like $100 sessions. And I was like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Like I should have people work with me for like 3 months at a time. I think I got that idea from that little free thing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I can put them on a payment plan. And then I was like, okay, it's $1,000 a month. The end. And then and then obviously I went into coaching and like all the different things, meaning like into mentorship. But it was like once I just started, like it was like, and also I used to have a thing about my voice,
Mhm.
which was really interesting because it's always where you have the most quote unquote shadow or shame or like your power has been dimmed down. Like I was always told I talk too much. I
Mhm.
always got in trouble at school for that.
Mhm.
Like, of course, that's what's built my business. And then also I was, invited onto the To Be Magnetic podcast,
Yeah.
which obviously was an enormous opportunity, but I didn't even have a business. So I was just like, I remember I wrote down on a piece of paper that I wanted to be on the show, but I didn't know why.
Mhm.
I had no ulterior motive. I had no
Mhm.
nothing. I just wrote it down.
Yeah, other
And then
than you liked that show and you liked her.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, and I like manifestation. And I think it's really cool seeing like how our patternings and our traumas are related and like yada yada. And then I was connected to one of her friends and they were looking for people who'd like done that work at that time. And I had, and I was like, oh, well, here's my story. Like I just emailed them and I told them. And then they invited me on. And I was I mean, I had a vulnerability hangover afterwards, which is so funny because now we just talk about all this stuff all the time. I had to like take a nap
Right.
from
Yeah.
sharing like all my stuff.
Yeah.
But regardless, so then of course, when it came out, like all these people reached out to me. But again, it wasn't like through the premise of me having I didn't even have a business. But
Right.
then I was like, oh, these people like my story. And I was like, oh, okay. It was like another confirmation that I can really help people.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, just start helping them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I really let people make it so complicated in the beginning. Like that's what was going on.
Yeah.
And then obviously I got in mentorship and I moved really fast and like learned how to really run a company. But it was really just letting myself just talk about what I wanted to talk about in a very like unfiltered way
Yeah.
in a world of people who are always like over analyzing every single thing they say or trying to be a certain way or come off a certain way. And also, I was open. Like, I talked about the fact that during my Saturn return, I created 6 figures in tax debt. I talked about how, I came from a family that had money, and I'm the only one who's financially destroyed myself. This isn't a pattern.
Mm-mm.
This is not a pattern in my family. My brothers haven't. Totally fine. My
Right.
dad is a rags to riches story, but I was hearing a lot of, how like we're usually the one who's here to heal all the family stuff. So he's the rags to riches story. So there's a lot of like addiction, financial chaos, like all of the stuff on his side of the family.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was like repeating a lot, just kind of like repeating a lot of those kind of things where
Like
it's like I
energetic
had
patterns.
energetic patterns that it's not that I was raised with them, they were like in my blood.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like what is it? We carry like 13 generations of trauma in our
Of trauma,
DNA.
exactly. And I
Yeah.
really did.
Yeah.
And just that feeling of like just lack
Hmm.
and feeling really down.
Yeah. Did you ever was there a time where the amount of money you either had or didn't have like affected your worth? Like if you were down, you felt down on yourself, or were
I
you
was
able to
down
always separate
financially
that?
for so long that yes, but I don't know that I would have thought of it that way
Mhm.
because I wasn't thinking about the relationship to myself, my power. And this is, I always say my whole journey in life is always around power,
Yeah.
just at new levels. But
Says
it
the
was,
Aries. There she is. If you want
is
to
that
know
an
about an
Aries thing?
Aries, just put the
Just
word
focus on
power in front of
power.
them and that's it.
I was so focused outside myself that I wasn't even really thinking about how the money, like my relationship to money, I was just obsessed with things outside of myself. It was like I was functioning emotionally like an addict. That's what I
Yeah.
was doing.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't addicted to drugs or alcohol.
Right.
So I
Right.
was addicted to psychics. I was addicted to this man. I was addicted to that. You know what I mean? So I wasn't, so money was like not, it wasn't like, oh my God, they have more money than me. They're better than me. My brain wasn't even going there because I was so zoned in on whatever
Your next
chaos.
move was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that. It's
It's
interesting. One of the
really like
things you
that's
said,
the best way I can explain it is like my brain was functioning like that. Whereas
yeah.
now, obviously very different.
Yeah.
Um, but I would say that yeah, there was times where it was like, I had so much. Why did I need to do that? Like,
Right.
why did it need to go so far? Why couldn't I be one of those people? There's some people who just never have a hard time with money,
Yeah. I'm not one of them.
but they exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's people who just, I'm not saying that they all become wildly wealthy, but I'm saying that like, it's just for some people, it's just not a thing. Like, don't you know these people where they just kind of like graduated from school, they got the job in finance, they became a lawyer,
Hmm.
save a
I
few
always
mil,
say,
buy a house. Like it's just never the boat never gets wrong. I was like, what is wrong with me?
I always find that it's usually people who are Aries rising. So Taurus will rule their second house. Second house Taurus people just are so good at making money. And it's like, that's just Taurus energy in general. And when it rules like your second house of wealth and finance, like those people, it's just,
I don't know where mine is.
well, your second house is the same as mine. Your second house is Sag. We both have second house Sag because we're
So
both
what is
Scorpio
that? A
risings.
little bit more adventure.
Well, yeah, second house Sag is like, it's, we can have a lot of luck and we can have a lot of expansion, and obviously like Sag is the sign of like philosophy and higher education and the mind and like luck because we're ruled by Jupiter. But the shadow of that is that Jupiter expands whatever's going on. So if what's going on is lack and scarcity, that's going to expand until we change the story. And so we
Yeah.
typically second house Sag people, like we have like really good moments and then really bad moments and then really good moments and really bad moments. And our journey is really learning to find that like neutrality.
Neutrality, which I'm always talking about.
But that's what okay, so that's where I want to go next. Well, first I want to ask you. So one of the things you said was like when I was getting started, like you didn't know like about coaching, and same, like when I started coaching, I was like, well, I'm really good at talking about that. So I should just talk about it and sell it. Like, okay, well, I need to figure out how to do an email list. I don't have an email list. I should make an email list. Like, oh,
It
and
is like Google. Oh,
right,
there's the
like
MailChimp.
how do I
Okay.
build an email list? Right. Like, and I think
And
it's
to be
so
clear for
interesting.
anyone listening, we can take a faster route. This was like not something you and I weren't doing that for like a year. I'm talking about like 4 weeks. You know what I mean?
100%. I learned
Yeah.
it fast. Like, and that's just, I think who we are in general. Like, we're just the type where like, I'm going to Google something, I'm going to figure it out, and it's going to be up and running the next day. And
Right.
no, I don't think you need to figure it out yourself now because coaching and mentorship exists.
But
However,
then we grew fast by being like, okay, that's enough doing it on my own.
that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah. But self starters, like people, like if you are the type of person, you don't need to know how. You just have to be a person who's like willing to go figure it out, and you will be successful. Like that, you kind of like nailed that. But I also feel like with how much like coaching, there's like a shadow to everything, right? So the shadow of the coaching industry becoming such a huge industry is that now people think that they can't do anything themselves,
Without.
you
But the
know?
thing is, the people who are thriving, like I think about all, the clients I have who've reached like, any months, but like 70K months, 100K months, or even new to 10K months, new to 40K months, whatever, they're always self-leading. So it's
Always.
like we're throwing gasoline on the fire, but you already lit your own fire.
Mm-hmm.
That can't be missing. You will not
Right.
make it as an entrepreneur if you don't have that.
Right. And like, of course, I mean, you have, I believe you have, or had, or maybe you shut it down, but you had a container for like, entry level entrepreneurs, like cohort, right?
Well, I blended it now. I have the Revolution, which is like my membership mastermind. So
Right.
it's not necessarily like towards income level, but it's like wherever you are coming in new or
Yeah.
scaling 7 figures or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, we have like work
Yeah.
for everyone. So they're just like combined now because it didn't make sense to have two spaces. But
Right.
originally, before I had the Revolution, it was just the cohort. And then like my higher income earners were like in a different mastermind.
Right. So like that's I think like we both have spaces, like I have scaled to 6 where like yeah, you want to like learn like some of those things that we had to go Google, and you want to hear it from somebody who did it so you can move faster, like there's a space for you. But even then, you still have to have this like scrappiness about you
Oh
almost.
yeah.
Like you have to. You can't come into business, and I think money especially like manifestation, and you do this really well and you talk about this really well, but I would love to know like how many people have you come across where they legit thought like, oh, I'll just learn how to manifest and then that's going to solve all my problems,
Solve all my
but
problems. Well, I
then
think where this comes from is the conditioning of school, right? So we're very conditioned that you just learn and regurgitate, and then one day you're going to be where you need to be. You
yeah,
just do that until you got college, and then you get a job, and you just do
yeah,
exactly what they tell you to do, and that's going to add up to everything that you ever want in your life.
yeah,
Right. But then, unless you are genuinely happy with that path, you start to like stuff starts to feel off. Right.
mm-hmm,
And then we're like, okay, I want to choose a new way. But it's so funny. I did this masterclass called the glitch in the matrix. Like, I think it was
mm-hmm,
last year because my brother was joking. He says when his friends ask him what I do for, like, they'll see me on social media, like, what does your sister do? He's like, she found the glitch in the matrix.
You're
Like,
Neo.
that's his answer, which I
And
love.
see, this is you and I are so similar. You have glitch in the matrix. I have break the matrix. Like
I know, I
our
love
charts
it.
are so similar.
Or like that's how we think.
I know.
So, but the thing is, like, I want freedom. And then it's like, teach me how to be free. You know what I mean? What are the rules to be free? And it's like, you break all the rules.
Right. Right.
Right. So
Right.
every conditioned way that you think that you have to move, that you have to be, that that's just what you do, that that's just how it is, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
you unwind that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, because it's been decades of us looping on the exact same paradigm, the exact same pattern, the exact same stories, the exact same message from everywhere, it's so programmed in that you don't realize you're running a program. That's the mind fuck. You're so programmed, you don't realize you're programmed. You just know that you feel off. And
Right.
then the way that you've learned, been taught to seek out a new way is to need to be told and then to regurgitate or do exactly to a T. That's how you got an A in school.
Right. Right.
I was that person where I don't remember anything I learned. I just had a good memory.
Right.
I wrote a
Exactly.
thesis that I don't remember writing and I got an A plus. I
100%.
don't even remember what it was
I
about.
don't even remember what it was about. Exactly. I have a photographic memory. Like I can look at
Yeah.
something once and I can just learn it. That's why I was summa cum laude. That's why I was valedictorian. It wasn't because I was like, you know,
Integrating all this deep historical information.
no.
And for some people it was that. But like I used to think something was wrong with me because
Right.
I was like, I don't even remember what I wrote about.
Right.
I just
Y-
remember
And
doing it and
it's
being
interesting.
exhausted.
Well,
Hmm?
you know what's interesting? So my son just started at a new school and it's all about like almost like breaking the matrix of education in a way. So
Yeah,
they
I
don't have
love that.
teachers, they have guides, and the guides are not allowed to solve problems for them. They're not allowed to answer questions. They
Good.
teach them how to think instead of what to think. And so Owen coming from public school as a smart kid, which is like a whole other thing. He
Yeah.
was telling me, I was asking him, I'm like, what are you struggling with? Like, are there any challenges you're having at your new school? He goes, only that I can't ask the guides for question. I can't ask the guides for answers. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, I can't go to them and like, if I can't find something or if I can't figure something out, like I can't go to them and ask for the answer. And I said, are they just like straight up ignoring you or are they he's like no, they'll say like, well, how would you find that answer? And he goes, and that's really frustrating for me. And I said, right, because like you've been even only you're only in third grade, but even for the last 3 years you've been taught like this is what you're going to think, this is where you're going to find the answer, this is how it's going to happen. And so now he's like really having to be like, oh, okay, so
But
if I
he's going
can't
to
figure
be
this out,
so sufficient. It's going to be unbelievable.
dude, I can't wait to see what he is by the time he's 16 because this is like exactly what we're talking about. This is what most of us didn't learn until we had an epic burnout and then a spiritual
Like
awakening at
destroyed our
30.
life and had to wake up.
Right. Right. In debt.
And then people are so, yes, they do it with manifestation, they do it with money, but it's like, to your point, it's like I'm teaching you even when I teach business strategy, I'm like, yes, I'm going to show you the thing
Mhm.
and multiple ways to do the thing, but what's most important is you understand why and the principles behind it.
Right.
Same with content, same with money, same with manifestation, same with all of it. Because if you never understand the why behind it, you will always be victim to the plan, victim to the framework, victim to whatever. And you will never actually rise in your power. You will never add your magic on and go your own way that's actually meant for you, which isn't even necessarily like a departure, but it's like you're coming to me wanting entrepreneurial freedom, right? So it's
Right.
like you are not entrepreneurially free if you're holding on by a thread
Right.
and
Like if
getting
you're
really stressed
waiting,
out because four people told you four different things and what should you do? I was like, you
right.
said you wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Right. Or if you post in our Slack channel and like you're like, can you look at this? And I don't get back to it right away. And you like won't go take
Get
action until
stressed.
I
Yeah.
respond. It's like,
Like not a good sign.
yeah. What
Now,
do
of
you
course,
wish?
when you're
Oh, go
making
ahead.
big decisions in your business, sometimes like, like business structure decisions are big decisions. And like
Totally.
certain things like that, it's like, yeah, you might want to have a conversation first before you burn down half your business. You know
Right.
what I mean? But
Right.
like, it's not that. I'm like, but put the offer out and like, we'll talk about it.
Right.
But you need to trust yourself enough to go. And
Right.
it's so interesting because I feel like so much of my acceleration, even though I was always in masterminds and doing my thing, was actually not very like I liked being in the room. I liked seeing what was possible. I liked listening to the conversation. But my fastest rise was actually very uninfluenced by other, like as
100%.
business model, sure, and like things like that, and just kind of like, I learned, oh, like, oh, I should have a group program. Like, that's a fucking vibe. Like, let's do that. I'll take
Right.
everything I know. But it's like, I would just hear the concept and then run,
Right.
or be like, oh, that's not for me. Like, I've never run a live launch ever. I was like, I
Right.
don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a big thing. Like, I didn't know these certain things, like, oh, these big live launches and all of this stuff. Like, I didn't know people held on to that because I just saw it and said, I don't want to. Or like sales calls, I did them for like a few months. I was like, I don't want to. Like
I don't
these
want to do it.
things of letting these things go, like
Yeah.
for a lot of people, it's so dramatic and it's so big, tied to our, fears around money. But like, I feel like I was able to just keep going because I'd be like, no, yes, no, yes,
Yeah.
no, yes. And there was no stories.
Right. I almost feel like I now, like when I'm same, like when I first started, like I did not hesitate. Like I wanted to learn something, I learned it, I implemented it, and it was very quick and it integrated very quickly. I almost feel like not, I don't hesitate more now, but you and I were just talking, like we're both kind of on this like deep dive to like really learning like solid ad strategy. And
Yeah.
like I'm not just gonna now throw $20,000 at ads without really understanding the process. Like I almost feel like I take my time more
More
now and I
now. I would
lean into
agree.
like, right, I lean into the guidance of my mentor more now than I did in the beginning, because in the beginning, like you are kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall, and like really, as long as you're moving, you can't really make a mistake.
Not really. You also have like nothing to lose. You're not paying a team. You're not like,
Oh,
you don't have, you haven't like, we have all these other things in place
right.
now,
Right.
right?
Like now, if I want to start a new funnel or I want to like build out a new thing, like I'm really going to think about like, what is this going to look like on the back end? Cause I'm not just going to throw $20,000 at it and then like it's not okay. Like,
Yeah, it's different, but it's like, that's a different evolution, but also then that becomes very easy. It's just a new
right.
level,
Right.
right? And it's very different to start a company than to build a company that can run without you. We're in two different universes in terms of entrepreneurial growth.
Right.
Right,
Right.
because the first part, actually, no one is involved but you,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then you're like, "Oh, okay. We wanna do legit freedom, not ball and chain from anywhere in the world," which is
Right.
what most people are doing,
Right.
right? And trying to call it
Where
freedom,
they're like, I can work from the beach. I'm like, but why would you want to work from the beach?
but you're still working, right? And it's like, and people, I mean, I see it all the time. I'm like, "Okay, you're having 100K months. You had 36 calls this week? Like, excuse me, what?"
I know. I hear people say that all the time. Like, oh, I have $100,000 a month. And, yeah, to do that, like I did 40 calls and I did this. And I'm like, but why? Why,
Why?
why did you do that?
Why?
Was that fun
Exactly.
for
I'm
you?
always
Like,
like,
did you
I
enjoy
don't get
that?
it. I don't get it. Like,
Yeah.
anyway, so I was always like, no, we're not doing any of that. And also, like, again, that shows you people's relationship to money. People really believe they have to work that hard to make money. And there's a difference between like getting your reps in, getting good at stuff, learning a new skill set, building mastery, yada, yada. And I mean, you see it all over our industry, and people who are literally like, their masculine is so overemphasized that like eventually the day comes, like
Right.
something happens. The day always comes,
Always.
but a lot of these people are like 29 years old.
Right. Right.
You know
Well,
what I mean?
and it will
And it's
like
like,
continue. I think a lot of people are like, I don't know when this is going to change. I'm like, it will change when you literally hit rock bottom, because until then, you're allowing it. Until then, it perpetuates because you allow it to perpetuate, and it will continue until
something
you are
happens.
absolutely at your wit's end.
And I think it's so interesting. I never really followed her work, but I respect her for talking about it. Vanessa Lau, do you know who
Yeah.
she is? And like she basically did this to herself without realizing. And I'm only speaking about it because she speaks about it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Um, but she built, I mean, I think she has does she have almost 1 million YouTube
Something
followers?
like that. Yeah.
Something enormous, right? She just built that engine so hard and she had to stop. She just ended all of it all at once. And then in coming back, she speaks about like why. And she was just so like addicted to that grind. And then also like never checking in with self. So as a very basic example that she gave that I thought was so powerful, she was kind of like, okay, like I hated creating this type of content, but then that type of content performed. So she was always focused on acquisition, 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 new
Right.
people, new people, new people, build the channel, build the channel, build the channel. So it's almost like if the Instagram version of being obsessed with creating viral content all the time.
Right.
Right. And wanting
Yeah.
to build your whole business off viral content. And I'm like,
Yeah.
which is so funny because I literally just saw someone posting in a group today about how all their content's going viral and they're making no money. I was like, girl, you focused on the wrong thing.
You posted on the wrong thing. Yeah.
But she was saying, so she kept creating this content that would bring more people and she hated creating the content. But then she was so addicted to having the new people, she kept creating the content. And then that would just bring in more people who wanted that type of content. Do you know what I mean? And it like
Yeah.
becomes like what you're saying, like this thing that eventually explodes. And then it was so crazy to me to hear her speaking about how, I mean, she felt so insecure. Like she all behind the scenes was just like insecurity, self-doubt, all of this stuff. And for me, and she's like, now sharing, obviously, like this is not what she recommends. She's just
Right.
being honest about what happened.
Right.
And I feel like because my quote unquote breakdown didn't happen in my business, it happened earlier. It's like
Yeah.
I had the sense to know if this does not add up on a soul level, we are not going anywhere.
Right.
We are going to have a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And like we can't be chasing money, addicted to money, and then have our masculine so overemphasized, so at the wheel that like you will literally do whatever, like people will do whatever it takes to keep those numbers up, whatever it takes to get more attention. And I'm like, you don't have to, you can have the same thing. Like you
Yeah.
can get there like that, but something's going to give
Yeah.
eventually.
You
You
know,
won't go,
I actually had to kind of learn that the hard way because like my sun and my moon and my Saturn are all in that Sag second house placement. So like a lot of the lessons, the biggest lessons I learn are going to be around my relationship and emotional connection to money. And so one of the biggest lessons I had to learn was that like I I had to get to the point where I was okay with a dip if it meant that what we were doing was going to slingshot us forward on the back end,
yeah,
because I used to do this thing where I'd be like, oh my gosh, the numbers are lower than they were last month. I should just sell a discounted one-on-one. Like I never did it, but I would have those thoughts of
right.
like,
You would
oh, what could
always
I
want to
sell?
go.
But then I'm like, but no, I
We're
don't
never going
want
to
to
get
sell
there.
more one-on-one. I don't want to do more like human design readings. I don't want to do like, not for that price at least. Like you want to pay me $2,000 for a human design reading, no problem. But I'm not doing it for, I don't want to do it for $800. Like I just don't.
I
And
don't want to. Yeah, the
right.
end.
And it's a switch in your brain. Cause like in order for that to be true, you really do have to be okay with the fact that like, yeah, if you're making big changes, especially like the more your business grows in the beginning, not really, but like the more your business grows, like these little tweaks you make in your business that are going to have this like huge impact, you're gonna maybe have like not like a huge dip, but like there will be moments where you're
There's going to
energetically
be
in a different
moments.
place.
And when I've seen where they're not,
Mhm.
again, there's that all cost. Well, because I got 65 masterminds, 45 private clients. So they're willing to do all that
Yep.
while building more scalable. So,
Yep.
but then later they want to cool that down. Like somewhere along the way, you're going to either, I don't want to say plateau, what I call is find ease at the level,
Yep.
right? We're not plateauing, we're finding ease at the level. So we've
Yep.
learned how to make this amount of money.
I like
How do we
that.
learn how to do it? Like, yeah. So I'm always like quantum leap, then find ease at the level. Then you can leap again.
Yeah.
You aren't, because this language they use in the business world, it's like you're plateaued. You're like, it's so heavy
It's
that if
scarcity.
people are scared, and I'm like, you might be the smartest bitch in the room and you don't
Right.
realize.
Right.
And by you actually being forward thinking and like looking ahead,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know what I
saying like
mean?
plateau is really just that old programming of being addicted to like the scarcity, and it's being addicted to the trauma and like the drama and like all these other things. Like,
So
oh, I'm
emotionally intense. I'm like, or
right.
you're in a dip. It's
Right.
like, doesn't that, do you know what I mean? How even the language
Yeah.
elicits fear out of people. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's very toxic and strange.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, how about we're looking at the result? We're looking at how we feel inside the result.
Yeah.
We are taking like a business lens on, okay, well, because there's always, a strategic and an energetic reason why for everything.
Right.
So it's like, okay, cool. If you just walked away from a container that used to make you X amount of money, like this would make sense. Cool. How do we want to pick that back up in a sustainable way? Like there's always business answers to everything. But then on an energetic level, it's like, okay, cool. Well, like this is an enormous opportunity to look at like your relationship to money, your relationship to power, because power is not like only when we're winning and you feel like a mill. The
Right.
woman who you perceive, who are like, everyone's like, oh my God, how is she like that? It's like, because when it's not going her way, she does not change. She does
Right.
not shift. The plan doesn't change. She doesn't go into scarcity. Private coaching is not 50% off now,
No.
right? She's not now insecure to sell, insecure about the result of her work, insecure about like, is my embodiment off? I'm like, because your income changed for a
Right.
few months, like
Right. Right.
it's so toxic and weird. And I'm like, you could have the best reason in the world for that.
Yeah.
And then the women who are like, oh, that's never happens.
Right.
They all work around the clock. And I'm saying this from being someone who's extraordinary, who's had extraordinarily sustainable growth, but I'm
Yeah.
talking about even getting past sustaining 100K months. Like, you know what I'm saying? When I'm,
Right.
in conversations, people having $500,000 months, like higher, yada, yada. And I've seen it in so many different ways. And to your point, the people I'd known who even got close, had hit $1 million months or whatever, and then decided to scale a company, like, yeah, some of them had some 300K months after that while they built back up, which I understand that sounds like a lot of money. But think about that difference. $1 million a month to not how much money is in your bank, but just that drop, like the quote unquote drop.
When you think
It's
about the
very similar to,
lifestyle, what your lifestyle costs if you have a million, I mean, if you have $1 million
well, they
a
weren't
month,
like
like your lifestyle is
sustaining them, but
different.
I'm saying they'd had some, you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, these are people where $300,000 a month is still like plenty of abundance, but you get my point,
I
right?
do.
There's
Yeah. I
also
do get your
businesses
point.
that actually couldn't sustain making less than $1 million a month because
Yeah.
of how they're stacked. But
Yeah.
the point is like the internal side, right?
Right.
And so the people I've seen, not just who are like traumatically addicted to their businesses, making insane money, but the ones who like realize like, oh, actually I want this to be a company, meaning not just a high-end consultancy. Actually I want this to be able to run without me. Actually I want to be able to get to these places. They're like, oh yeah, well, I stopped taking private clients. So then this happened, but then we just built back up in this other way.
Right.
They didn't lose their power in that moment.
Mm-mm.
Right. And there's been like, I closed a container that's made me over $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's like, I'm scaling in different ways, even though obviously there's places to have proximity with me, but there's things I used to run that I don't run anymore. Maybe I run them multiple times a year and now it's less, but it's just like, cool.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is
Right.
entrepreneurship,
Right. Well, and it's
navigating to new
what,
territory over and over again.
right. So one of the things that if you like, if you're listening to this, I love how you say like, it's just the language, right? Like we don't use the word dip. We don't use the word plateau. I like, well, and this is just like, it's entrepreneurship and there's so many different like ways to do it. And you really do have to look internally. Like for me, I don't get like a lot of people get scared of the word dip. Like I changed my relationship with the word dip and now like I envision it like the pullback of a bow
The
and arrow.
slingshot.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
the farther you're willing to pull back that bow and arrow, the farther it's willing to shoot. And
And this
like,
is assuming you're doing something, right? This isn't
right,
like, you know what I mean? I'm
like,
not talking
oh, I'm in
about
a dip. Wah,
we're
wah.
sabotaging behind the scenes and so our money's dropping. It's like, no, I'm actively in an evolution with a clear vision on what's next.
If you can get to a place in your business where you just know that everything you're doing makes sense. So if you are making less money, if your income changes, if there's something that's happening, like get to the place where you can be honest with yourself and be like, well, this makes sense because of X, Y, and Z. But I
And
think a
then
lot
it's
of
not that
people,
deep.
yeah,
Yeah.
they outsource it, right? It's like, well, that doesn't
Well,
make
they
sense.
make it
I don't know why. I'm like,
personal.
really? Do you not know why? Or are you just not willing to look at it?
And like now it's like like the whatever is happening in a 30-day period in your company has become a personal issue. When if you are working inside of a full-time job, this is not how we would treat a slow quarter.
No, no, no,
It's
no.
not connected to your personal value.
Right. What's something you wish, like, besides that money is an energy and money is a tool, like what, that typical advice that people
Yeah.
give? What's like one big thing that you wish people really understood about money?
how connected to your power it really is.
Ooh, tell me
Like,
more.
this is why, well, look at all of these narcissists who do so well in life because they just believe, like, they just believe their own stuff so deeply. Like, because it's interesting with money, as you know, like, money doesn't really care how, like, good hearted you are, right? Like, money is very neutral. But to me, it's like not even about, right? Because a lot of like spiritual women are just so focused on being good.
Mm.
Women are focused on being good, right? It's
Mhm.
like the good girl, the good daughter, the good neighbor, the good, to the point where it's actually just like you've lost yourself. You don't even know who you are, right? It's like a little sliver of a full human.
Right.
And like, I'm obviously like care about being like an integral human or someone who like genuinely cares, but that to me is not connected to being good. And I don't fake it. Like, if I
No,
don't care, I just don't care.
no. Right. Like, I don't want
But
to hurt your feelings. I'm a nice person. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I will.
yeah, and it's like more like I'm just like not cruel,
Right.
you know?
Right.
But the point is that we see this all the time and people get so confused. And I talk about it all the time about money being connected to power. But the problem is that people think that power, because they see, you know, certain types of celebrities or politicians or whatever, power gets a bad rap, right?
Yeah.
But it's like you're like, if you put money in somebody's hands, they're just gonna go do the things they wanted to do anyway. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's not about being like, there's people with no money who do terrible things in the world. There's people with lots of money doing amazing things in the world. Like, money is just not charged in that kind of way. It's just going to amplify the human, whoever that human is, and what they choose to have amplify within themselves. But it's like, there is no road to, especially like self-built, self-created wealth, or a story where it's like, I don't even mean that you have to be an entrepreneur, but like, let's say you're even in a full-time job and like, you started investing, you started looking for companies to invest in. Like, there's so many ways to make tons of money. It doesn't have to be like, you know, because I always say no matter what, it's not about how much money you make, it's what you did with that money to make you more, right?
Right.
So you could be an entrepreneur or not, it doesn't really matter. But it's like, you still have to call on a level of personal power that is so far beyond what most people will model to you or normalize for you,
Wait, what is
right?
that? You have to call in.
Or to call on a level of personal power that is so beyond like what people will normalize for you or role model to you, that you're
Yeah.
going to be told is cocky, that is,
Full of
you know what I
yourself.
mean? All these things that are just a human that is actually in their power,
Yeah.
because wealth is felt, you know,
Yeah.
like it
I've been
in a
called
way.
cocky my whole life.
You're like, I was always supposed to be rich.
Always. I was like, if you mean
I
like
just didn't know.
wildly authentic in myself, then okay, sure.
Yeah. But I think, but that's part of it, right? Like, that has to be there. It's very, because we see money follow power everywhere,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Even
interesting. I think I'm
someone,
I'm thinking about like Anna Delvey right now. Like the way that she was able to like create this like power and like she's
out
a
of
narcissist,
every moment of drama she's created. I mean,
right?
now she was on Dancing with the Stars with a bedazzled ankle bracelet.
Oh my gosh. And then what did they were like, what did you
What
take
did you,
away? Nothing.
nothing.
But like
She looks
you
good.
did you watch that show? Like the amount of power that
You
this
mean like the documentary?
yeah, like she's
Yeah,
a
I loved
narcissist
it.
for sure.
She's just a
And
full blown. This is what I'm saying. So many of these narcissists, even if they get in trouble, they do so well. And like, I'm not saying I don't want this for myself on
no,
a what it comes. Their version comes at a cost. We get to build wealth without the cost. This is the enormous difference,
right. But
right?
money doesn't care.
Money doesn't care is the thing.
Money doesn't
But you
care. So
also
like
don't need
what
to
you
start
choose to
acting crazy.
amplify, your choice, but the other universal laws are going to take care of it if you're building it from a you know, a place of shadow versus a place of abundance.
Yeah,
Like
you're
the
gonna
universe
have
is going to take
health
care of that.
drama, legal dramas, relationship dramas. Like, it's all, you know, Donald Trump is a perfect example, right? Where
Perfect
it's like,
example.
clearly money doesn't care, like the like everything, he can mostly get his way most of the time, but the amount of drama that it comes with, right? We
Right.
see this with all of these like drug lord stories, the mafia stories, right? You can do it at all costs,
Right.
right? You can build it on
Well, look at Diddy.
immoral ground. I mean, I'm like,
Right. But see,
homeboy, I
this
don't
is
know how you're
why,
going
I
to come
mean,
back from this one. I think you went too far.
But
I
see,
think
this
this is
is
like the end of the road.
yeah, but see, this is why people will like, I think this is why people sabotage like their ability to make money because, it's like, oh, well,
They
too much
think something
money
like this is going to
gonna
happen.
make me like that. It's like, no, because money doesn't give a shit. It's just that narcissists and like evil, quote, evil people are not thinking about the consequences. They're not thinking
No.
about those things. They're just going after the power and they're gonna get it. But the other universal laws are gonna take care of that and it's gonna come with drama.
I mean, and his is just extraordinary.
Extraordinary.
Jeffrey Epstein, like it's all the same.
I think all of those are connected. I'm just waiting for it to come
But
out.
also, these people are just extreme narcissists. That's
Right.
literally, they're just power hungry narcissists. But it's like, we're talking about personal power. Theirs is like power, unhealthy levels of power over other people. Like, it's not even influence, it's like
Right.
control.
There is a level, I was talking about this with somebody the other day. I was like, I think in order to like really be rich and like in order for you to really find that power and like attract the money that comes with it, there is something we can all learn from a narcissist in that they truly on the outside, I mean, obviously like on the back end, this comes with drama and it comes down back to bite them, but in the moment, they don't care at all what people think of them. And they're going to do whatever they need to do to get their bag. And I think like we can all learn something from that. Obviously, like, don't just go be a full blown narcissist and like don't have this like weird power over other people. But there is a level of like, that's the power you're talking. I mean, that's to your point. That's the power you're talking about.
But you just have to be like, but it's also not like the what I was saying earlier, where it's like that hardcore grind. You don't need to do that either. To
Right.
me, it's just this like energetic certainty and ability to like not get distracted.
Right. You talk a lot about neutrality with money.
Yeah.
How has that like, especially now, I mean, you live in
My
this like
greatest journey. Good
well,
Lord.
yeah, I mean, but like,
Yeah.
for those of you listening, like you should go look at her Instagram because she lives in this like incredible multi-million dollar like penthouse in Brooklyn. And like you literally have this like perfect, amazing, dreamy life. And it feels so easy. You talk about like easy money and abundance and all these things, but there's a real neutrality with you when it comes to money. And I would just like love for you to elaborate on neutrality because I think that's a really complicated
It
subject for
is,
people.
but it's learned in its practice. I clearly was not carrying that before. And
Right.
it's also come with me, we talked about in my chart how I'm someone who will take a lot of risk.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's
three
like,
five. She's a 3-5 generator.
yeah. And there was something else. Was it the placement of my Jupiter?
Yeah. So yeah, you have Jupiter and Aries, like where I have it as well.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's that. It's like it's this. You live life on the front lines and kind of report back to the rest of us. Like
totally.
you get what you want by taking risks.
Right. So that can go a lot of different directions, right?
Right.
And the thing is, although I'm happy I'm so risk tolerant, it's like there's this part of me where I always just feel like it's going to work out. Like, even when it feels like it's not going to work out, I feel like it will,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I would say that the neutrality was built because of even being against financial edges, even since I've had this company and made lots of money. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because as you know, like I've invested a lot into different investments. I'm very into tax-free wealth building.
Yeah.
Right, if we've made different evolutions in the business, right, that require, to your point, like, hey, we're going to take a step back to move forward, so this is going to look different. And also just my stubbornness, like I'm unwilling to do things I don't want to do. Like
Yeah.
it's not gonna, I won't do them just for money.
Yeah.
So it's like I've had to hold my own line in moments that felt more complex with money, even after having created a lot of success, while also having the level of quote unquote financial responsibility that I have. And just knowing that, like, as I follow my truth, like the clarity, the path, like I know where I'm going, but it's like, you never get when you're all wobbly and lack driven and all this stuff, like the abundance doesn't come. And so it's like, it's really been built in the moments where most people collapse. It's not been built by having money. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Even though I've
Yeah.
had money and still had to build it. But I mean, like, I had to move a lot of money, or maybe certain months weren't going the way that I desired them to. And we've got all of these expenses, or like I am investing a lot of money into the business for that next level of growth, or I'm choosing not to go on luxury vacations because I'm prioritizing my company right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you're like, oh, but you live in this kind of home. Because I'm like, this is my luxury. You know what I mean? But it's
Right.
like, there's times where I still have had to quote unquote choose some, but it's for what I want on the other side. But it's like, I can't get attached to like, oh, well, there has to be this amount of money in the bank account for me to be okay.
Yeah.
Even when you,
And
because
you make
in
decisions.
making,
Oh, sorry. I was
what's
gonna
that?
say you make decisions like based on where you're going to be a year from now, not how we're feeling in
Not
this moment.
today. But the thing is, how I got to that being okay was walking it over and over again and really being able to hold myself through financial discomfort over and over again and not let it send me into some spiral inside the business, because that's what most people do, or whatever,
Yeah.
or they sabotage in a different way, or they abandon themselves. And
Yeah.
so it's actually been built while being up against different edges, because it's
Yeah.
also like, well, what kind of money coach are you if you're only solid with money when you money's doing exactly what you want it to do?
Right. What's something that sent you into financial discomfort recently that like would have crumbled most people?
Crumbled.
Or like,
Hmm.
most people would not have been able to like use it to propel them forward.
I would say some of the decisions that I've made in like growing my company, for example, like not during some of my highest months.
Mhm.
So, for example, like I now have two team members. I let go of someone. I'm trying to think. Even like moving into the ads here, like I just keep putting money into my company no
Yeah.
matter what's going on. But
Yeah.
people won't do that,
Yeah. So
especially
like
once
you're
they
saying
start
like even
making
on months
money.
where like
So I
the
wouldn't say these
income
are
is a
huge.
little lower, you're still putting
Yeah,
that
but
much
it's
more money back into the company.
yeah. But I would say it's not like it's not like they've been huge, huge. These aren't like the seasons where I'm like, okay, I moved 100 grand in this investment, 50 grand in this investment, blah, blah, blah. Although I have done that and that felt like an edge previously. But your girl paid no money in taxes in 2023 on
Right.
$1 million.
Right.
I paid a
Right.
little bit,
Yeah.
maybe like 12
Same.
grand.
Like I paid a little,
But
but
I'm
like,
just saying, like, this is, but I did what it took. But it was scary to keep releasing those amounts of money into the investments that allow me to be in that situation.
yeah.
Right. And also, for everyone knows this is legal. So, first, it was those kind of things, because people will hold on. Like, that was what it was at first. Even moving the money, living here, and paying for like multiple years of private mentorship, like all that stuff, like really trained me. But now that's kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's
But
like
I would say
whatever.
at that time, there was a lot of people who wouldn't do that because they'd be so attached to that money being in their account. Right.
Right.
But these are the people where they make $1 million and then they pay $400,000 in taxes,
Right.
because then like you'd rather pay the government than deal with your ego around how much money's in your bank account.
Right.
It's insane. That's
It's
a separate
insane.
conversation.
Yeah.
But so I would say it's not been like those kind of big moves where it's like I'm moving 50K here, 100 grand there. It's been more like, okay, we need to grow the business in these areas. We need these skill sets. We need these things going on. When I also, oh, I did do something. I'm like, what would people be unwilling to do? Like, I closed on a container that's made me over $1 million.
Because you were
It
no
was like,
longer interested in doing it.
well, it just doesn't make sense. It like
Right.
just the with the layout of my business, it doesn't make sense. But
Right.
it's like I didn't make it this whole drama. You know how people do, and they'll go on the internet and they'll do a live about it
I'm
and take
closing this
get
down. Yeah.
everybody on this journey. I was like, y'all, it's not that deep. I don't even think I explained it. Like it's just we're just not doing. Just come here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't need you to go on I don't need to be validated in
Right.
making a smart business decision. I
Right.
know where we're going. So things like that. So what happens when you do that, right? You're like, okay, cool. This revenue is not coming in this way. So we're going to like evolve it. But like, you're still needing to flow large, money to do different things before that full evolution has occurred. What someone else might do is build the revenue up in the other way and then release the thing. And I tend to not go in that order because I don't want to work that hard.
I don't want to work that hard.
That's the other option,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or it's like
And
you
that
can
works
just,
for some people. Some people like really do well doing that.
I don't.
I
Then
don't
I'm just
either.
like exhausted and my creativity is on the floor and I'm just stressed out.
Yeah.
So it's like my tolerance for risk will allow me to just release the thing and know
Right.
like we're going to be good.
Right.
So
Like
I
I
would say
get
it's been
paid for my
more,
brain. I get paid for my wisdom. I get paid for the way that I see things that other people don't see. And I can't do that if I'm exhausted. I can't do that if
no,
I'm
I
burnt out.
can't. But for some people, for whatever reason, like that's not how it shows up for them.
Well, I think it's like when you're teaching more like when your niche is like a skill set. Like, okay, so like the Maria Went, the girl that we both taken at or took her ads course, like that girl works. And I'm like, but she's teaching a very like a skill that she's learned over time
Right.
and
It's
can now
literally
just like
like do
teach us
one,
how to
two,
do
three,
it.
4, 5, 6.
Right.
It's
So
a
it's
different
different.
kind of, yes, it's a different conversation. And I think
Yeah.
it's a little bit different, although I would say she's quite creative with how she creates her
She's an
content.
incredible coach.
Yeah. But I'm saying, but it's different when you need to be like open to messages coming through you,
Mm-hmm.
and translating those. And
Yeah.
again, there's probably, but she has a lot of space in the fact that like for her, having high ticket and having proximity was extraordinarily draining to where there can be zero. Whereas like I
Yeah.
don't feel like that
No, I
needs to
don't feel
be
like I
zero
love
at
to
all.
talk. So
Yeah, and I like the relationships and stuff. But that was a hard pass for her, right? So we all have our thing
right.
where we're like, "Okay, I'm gonna give here to have this," and it's like know thyself.
Right. But this
But
is where
yeah,
like I mean this is what I talk about all the time. Like when you know yourself you win, and like your human design can help with this, like your astrology can help with this. Like there are so many different things that can help you to really honestly stop looking outside of yourself for the answers. And like obviously the way that Jocelyn and I think and operate within our own businesses is similar, but there are other people that do not operate their businesses at all like us and are still very fulfilled, very at peace, very satisfied, and
yeah,
very fucking rich and successful. And
totally.
it really comes down to like how deeply are you really willing to go with yourself?
Yeah. Because even how, sorry, like we talk about, let's get to a business that can run without us. There's these women that have been personal brands on the internet for like 15 years who are still showing up just like that, who love it.
Right.
In my mind, I'm like, but why wouldn't I want to build a company that can run without me? Not because I'm going anywhere, but for that power of choice. And so
Right.
that I'm not, needing to show up face to cam when I'm 60 years old. Like, I'm
Right.
not going to be doing that.
Right.
But it's like, I say that, and that's, and there's a certain type of human who also, but I also believe in personal brand. It's kind of like I believe in both,
Of course.
right? And you get to like sort of find your blend and have them together. But there's someone else who's like, no, I'm a hardcore personal brand, and they still want to be doing they've been in business for 15 years
Yep.
and they are still doing all the face to cam, sharing your whole personal life,
Yep.
like nothing, like just doing exactly what they always did. And they
Right.
like it.
And they like it. And that's fine. And it's like how
And like, I
undistracted.
believe I think some of them, I'm sure some of them are pretending to like it, but I think there's ones who genuinely do because you can feel it in their
Yeah.
content.
And I started making more. I mean, for me, it's like, and I think you probably will echo this. Like, I started making more money that felt good. Like, money to me that comes in a way that doesn't feel good. I can't do it. Like, I'm
It's
like, you
really
said it. I'm never
draining. It's
doing anything just for the money. Like, I'm just not. And the minute I really started to learn that, money started flowing. Hello. Like, you know,
And I think sometimes, like, I don't know if you've had this experience or this is a 3-5 thing. I feel like sometimes when something is falling out of alignment, like things, and maybe it's just I'm a money coach. I feel like money will speak to me in certain patterns where I'm like, there's something to look at.
yes.
It's like, okay, why is all this weird stuff happening in this one container? You know what I mean?
Why is there so much drama? Yeah.
Or like people defaulted, like where's the why this one they're
Why
not
are
doing
there
it in
so
my
many defaulted
mastermind, they're
payment?
not doing it
Yes.
over here. Why this one container is now has all this drama on it?
Yeah. Well, that's actually a
Or
really good point. Like, I think that's a huge piece to like making money and holding money and all, all the conversations we have around money is like, money is not the conversation of money doesn't just happen in like how much money's coming in, how much money's going out. Like, money speaks to you from so many different places. And it's like, you have to be, but you also
but this
have to
is
be
the part
open
where I
enough to
say that
see
it
it.
isn't energetic because I don't mean sit around and vibrate on money. I don't think that will get you very far. It's like
No.
much deeper than that. But I think in the way that it shows up, right?
Yes.
It's sort
Yeah.
of like the energetics that will show up in our romantic relationships when we are just real far left, right? From where we need to be to show up for a healthy relationship. It's quite obvious. It's
Right.
like you can feel the energy in the room, like
Right.
even if
Right.
either of you aren't talking about it, right? So I feel like money very much like does the same thing where it kind of like shows you where you need to pay attention.
Right. Like the harder I've had to like hustle or like break my own boundaries for money, the more problems that arose
It comes
as a
with,
consequence.
or you're just trying to like make it work, or it's like,
Yes.
okay, I'll do it one last time.
That one last
Or,
time is the worst
and you're like,
experience you've
when,
ever had.
yeah, when is it going to end? And then, yeah, that's what I've seen because I don't know, has this happened in your business where it's like, things are like, it's like light, it's easy, it's a vibe. It's just, it feels very easy. And it's not
Yeah.
even about the price point. Like
Yes.
sometimes it could be some of your lowest price things
Yeah.
because of how just like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? The lightness. And then also, but I've had very high ticket spaces also be extraordinarily easy because of the alignment, right? So
Yes.
it's not even about the amount of money, but it's like I feel when you're holding on to something or holding on a container or whatever it is in your company and doing that like one last time energy or, well, like this is what we've been doing, this is what we do. It's like stuff just starts to be weird.
Weird.
Weird. And then I feel like money starts doing weird things. And you're like, okay,
Yes.
obviously I need to change something.
Yes. Yes.
I mean,
100%.
even I would say, like, if we think about team or like just all the areas that surround, like, to your point, it's not just bank account stuff, but it's like, you know, it's like,
Emails get
cool.
like if you're holding on to team members too long, but like it's like time to like move on or evolve out, like shift, and like something needs to shift. Like it, if you're doing that, that's an energetic misalignment, and you're gonna start to notice some weird shit start to happen.
Yeah. Or like now making money feels harder, or
Mhm.
like, maybe the team's not where they need to be. And so let's say that, I don't know, people need to get on board and all this stuff for these certain places. And then if you're like, well, they're not going to do what they're supposed to do, then the payment comes in and then the payment feels heavy because you're like, oh, the team member's not going to show up. And now we got a heavy thing going on with money. Do you know what I mean? Like there's so many different intricacies.
Yeah.
And I feel like you get to see what's going on, it's not like what's in your bank account, but it's like, what's your present experience with money surrounding the thing that it's tied to?
Yeah.
Right. So for example, if you have a business, how do you feel when money comes in for this particular offer?
Right.
Right. If you think about 100 new clients come in today, does that break your business? What happens? Right.
Right.
So it's like, what experience are you having around how the money's moving around you? In addition to, of course, like, can you release lots of money? Can you receive lots of money and not need to like get rid of all of it because you think it'll never happen again, or to go back to your scarcity pattern? Like, can you feel the same way moving a lot of money as you feel receiving a lot of money? Like, talk about neutrality, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's like a good starting point to see like what's going on. It's like the experience that you're having with that money.
Yeah.
People even do it flowing money. I'm like, why are you paying for that?
Right. Right.
You don't have to,
You don't have to pay for that. Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
even want to.
Right. Right. Okay, one last question before we, because we say this all the time. You and I could talk for hours.
We did.
And we do. What's like the most like recent thing you bought for yourself that like you 10 years ago, like sure, you believed probably would happen because you always knew you'd be rich, but like something you just bought for yourself that you were like, yup, I did that.
Oh my goodness.
Like something fun.
I have to think because I normalize so many, like when you ask me these questions, I'm like, oh, this is normal stuff, right? So I
Right.
don't like
Right.
think about it like one specific
Or
thing.
like an experience or yeah, something
You
like
know
just
what?
something fun.
This sounds interesting, but I'm going to share this one that I think is like, I always wanted, like, I'm a space person. I'm from California, even though I live in New York, but I have like a large, three
Place.
bedroom,
Yeah.
three bathroom place in New York. And I like finally, my guest room's almost all the way there, but it's like it's almost all the way there now. And I like basically finished it before my brother came because he was staying with me. And it felt like, and even though I have the office, I have my whole suite and my hair, I have this huge kitchen, like everything's beautiful, but it felt like so special. And I don't know why, but it's like, oh, I have a real guest room
Yeah.
where it's like a real one. It's not
Right.
like, oh, well, you can sleep on the futon in my office.
Or even like a
Or
guest bedroom where like it's very clear that you designed the rest of the house and then like you just kind of didn't to like save money. Like you actually just went
exactly.
for it.
Like it's gorgeous. Like the piece of art over the bed was $1,000. And like
Yeah.
it's actually like a photograph from Tuscany. And I go in there and I'm like, oh, so good. But you
Love.
know what I mean? Just bought these like really nice linen sheets and still bought like a $1,200 bed. And like,
Yep.
and these aren't the most expensive things that I've purchased,
No.
but it's more like I'm like, oh, it feels, and there's still things I want to do in there, but it's like being taken into the level of consideration of the rest of my home. And there's something to me that feels so luxurious
Yeah.
about like my brother stayed here. I was like, oh, I went to Woodstock and there was like an overlap time where he was here by himself. And he was just like, staying in your apartment is better than like a 5-star hotel. I was like, I know.
Yeah.
And to have like, but I'm used to it.
Yes,
But
of
you
course you are.
know,
Yeah.
because like I've been living here for almost 2 years, but I'm very aware, we've got like water views from every angle. I mean, this is like an unreal experience in New York. This is something like
It's
0.1%
delusional. Yeah.
people
It's
experience
delusional.
in New York. And I am aware of that. But I'm here every day. And so sometimes though, like having someone else like come in and be able to stay here and like, he was like, can I take a, because I have like a freestanding bath that overlooks the water. He was like, can I take a bath in there in my bathroom? I was like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh my God, staying at your, and his like friends came over. He's like, we were sad that you weren't there, but like everybody was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And honestly, even though that wasn't something that I bought, it was like, wow, I got to give someone that experience because always like I would let people stay with me. But you know what I mean? They're like before I'd be like, oh, you can sleep on my little couch or like,
Right.
and it was
Right. Or
fine.
like
And you're
sleep in the
like,
guest bedroom. It's a hand-me-down bed, but like it's fine. Like,
it's fine. And now I'm like, oh, like my it's so cool. My brother got to stay here and have this like 5-star experience.
yeah, that's
And it
cool.
feels really good to be able to like, I don't, this is probably like my Taurus and Venus where like the material is actually like emotional for us. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where I'm like, oh my God, I could like, and he had to film something from work. And I was like, oh, you should totally do it in my office. It was like some competition, like for a presentation. I was like, oh, do it in my office,
Yeah. I love
And
that. I
like,
think that's really cool. For me, like it's similar. Like when I can like buy my friends like plane tickets to come and visit us, or if we're like on vacation and I'm like, oh, like we're going to like a nice restaurant and I'm just gonna pick up the tab and like not even think about it.
that
Like these are
stuff.
things that are like not that much money, but it's like it's different than being like, okay, we're gonna go to dinner, but like, can we all just like split the bill? Or like, oh, like, come and visit us. Like,
Yeah.
you can stay here when you get here. Like, but being able to be like, no, you know what? I'm gonna fly you here. You're gonna stay in my amazing house. I'm gonna plan all these things for us. And like, you don't really have to worry about anything. It's
But
really
like
special.
that, it's like that stuff for me because yes, I've bought my sofa was $10,000 and this, that, and
Of
the
course,
other. But like I didn't have that. I was just like, okay, well, the kind of sofa I want costs $10,000. Like it didn't have a
100%.
feeling.
Right.
It's like these other things that involve other people or that are more experience based,
Right. Like I
where
wasn't
it's
looking for a
like,
$10,000 couch. It's just like I knew exactly what couch I wanted, and that couch cost
that's
ten
how
thousand
much it
dollars.
costs. Exactly. So it was like, that's just what we don't move in a place like here. And then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just part of the deal. But yeah, it's those kind of things more than it is
Yeah, I get
like
it.
there's been other moments. Did you have these earlier where it's like, oh, you could now pay to fly first class. You could now pay to stay in these types of hotels, like things I valued. But that
Oh,
doesn't feel, that to me doesn't feel, it doesn't have that moment on it. It's like, of course, that's what we're doing. Cause I want to walk in the airport, not deal with anyone. Like it feels more like that.
yeah. Like I have
But it's
TSA
these,
and clear and lounge access and first class flights because I don't want to deal with other people.
I don't
It's
want to
not because
deal
I'm
with
like,
anything.
oh, like it's not that.
And like,
It's like
let's
these are
be
the
real,
standards.
it's not that glamorous these days up there
Right. Right.
for
But
most
also
of the
it's
time.
being able to like, of course, like, and listen, y'all, we are talking from a very neutral place because these are things that we have normalized for our life. Like, of course, the first time you fly first class overseas, like you better take all the content
Oh,
and
the
be really
overseas
excited about
ones are
it.
nice, but I mean like the domestic, like business class flights, I'm like I pay for it because I'm like, I don't want to deal
I don't
with
want to
all
be
that
back there.
stuff
I don't
where
want
they
to sit
pack
on the
people
plane
like
while people,
cattle.
yeah, I'm not trying to sit on the plane while people try to figure out how to get their bags down. Like, I'm not interested.
No, but it's not because it's so nice up
No,
front. It's just like doable.
no. Yeah, being able to like fly myself first class to Italy, of course, is awesome. And I'm never going to be like, I'm not going to ever disregard how cool that is. And being able to also fly my wife first class over
Like
there,
that's different. That's the part
different.
that is different. That's how it is for me too. What do you think that is?
I honestly
Like
think
that's
it's,
when it hits me more is
yeah.
like in my experiences with other
Well, it's
people.
legacy building, right? It's like, what's the point of doing all of this and like taking all these risks and like learning all of this shit about myself if I'm not going to be able to provide that for others? Like, it's
And you
boring. I
know
don't
what
want to
else
just
I
do it for
love too?
myself.
It's like the way that I take care of my dog. Cause like
Oh my
I
God,
don't
my
want
dogs live a
my
better
dog.
life than most humans. Thank you so much.
I know I'm like, she's so happy.
Yep.
She has her like walker that takes them to the park every day while I'm working out. My
Right.
dog drinks spring water. I'm like, yeah,
100%.
my dog drinks Mountain Valley spring
My
water.
dog eats raw meat. Like we do a raw diet that like costs like hundreds of dollars a month. Like,
Yeah. It's that kind of stuff for me. People are like, I'm sorry, you give your dog what? And I'm like, because we just tried raw food. Actually, she kept getting sick. She has to have like gently
she's a Frenchie,
cooked.
right? Or a
She's a
Boston,
staffy,
a
but it's
Staffy.
kind of like
Yes,
a
like
baby
those,
pit
they don't do
bull.
well. Mine's like a husky. Like,
Yeah, they can like hang, but she can only eat this one like freshly cooked. But I'm like, oh yeah, she's on spirulina.
yep,
I have all her supplements in there. She eats mussels for her joints, like
yeah,
those green lipid New Zealand, whatever they are.
right.
Like, you know what I mean? It's
I
like
mean,
stuff like,
Jocelyn, even being able to like these kittens that we just adopted, like even being able to be like, oh, we have three kittens now. Like, okay, it's fine because like I
yeah,
don't have to think about like who's gonna watch them when I'm at work. I don't have to think about like, can I
yeah.
afford these kittens?
What
Like, I'm
about
just
the
like,
vet, this,
yeah,
that, and
like
the
I'm just like,
other?
welcome to the family. Come on
Or
in.
just stuff like I don't know, you know what? I have so much stuff on the streets in New York. And she ate something. And one time she ate drugs off the street and it was scary because she had like a whole reaction. I'm assuming
Oh,
that's what it was by how she was responding. So then something like similar happened again. And I was like, is she okay? Is she not? Blah, blah. I gave it a day. She was still like doing all these weird trembling things. But then even going to the vet and they were like, okay, it's probably going to wear off, blah, blah, blah. But then I was like, no, do her blood work just in case. But like not having to make that decision of like, should I pay the $400 or not? You know
right,
what I mean?
right.
And like, because people sometimes have to decide that way for
They
their
have to
pet.
decide whether their dog is going to live or die.
Yeah. And I have pet insurance, and everyone, please go out and just get yourself some pet insurance. It's not that serious. It's very easy. It costs me $150 a quarter
Yeah.
and they pay back 80%.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I have the pet insurance, but it doesn't matter because you have to put up the money first,
Right.
right?
Right.
So like, or just things like that. She got sick when she was at camp and they had to like take her to AMC in New York from Philadelphia. And like, they call me from AMC and they're like, is it okay if we do this, and this? And I'm like in Miami, but it's like, what if money was a problem?
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Like, do whatever you need to do. But like, I don't want to be like, my dog's at the fucking hospital and
Right.
I don't know if we can do this. Like,
Right.
I can't do that. Like,
No.
I care. So it's like stuff like that for me,
Yeah. I agree.
even though that technically costs less money than the sofa.
Yeah. Right.
But these are things where it's like, they're closer to the heart,
Hmm. Yeah. It's the emotional stuff. Well,
Yeah.
I adore you and I think you're amazing. And we're going to put all of the links to your, like, I obviously have your Instagram and I have your website, but like, where can people find you? What's coming out?
Let's
What should
dive
people
into
have
my
their eye
world.
on?
Yes, come to my podcast, Queen Flow the podcast for all things feminine business and money. I'm most active on Insta. My podcast. My podcast is called Queen Flow. Did I say that?
Yeah, you
My
did.
brain is like turned into jello. Okay.
You did.
And then on Instagram, I'm jocelyn.kelly.reid. Yeah, send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. What's going on? And I'm always happy to like point you in the right direction for things in my world because I don't know when we're going to release our episode, so I won't get into the things.
Right.
But just come to Instagram, go
Yeah.
listen to the show. You will love it.
Her content will activate you. If you like my content, which obviously you do,
If
you
you're
know?
this deep in the show, I mean, I think so.
Jocelyn and I, like, I think I always say this about you, like, you trigger people into activation in the ways that I like to trigger people into activation. And I'm like, this bitch, yes.
It's so
Like,
funny because I don't even realize that I'm doing that.
well, no, of course
I'm
you
just
don't, because you
like,
have it at the gate. It's the gate 12. Like, it's channel.
I was
It's
like, am
literally
I
channeled
triggered?
messages.
Like I know that I'm triggering like as a concept, but like I don't, it doesn't feel that deep for me what I'm saying. Like,
Right.
I mean, it feels soul truth, it feels connected, but it doesn't feel like I'm trying to like,
No, it's a
oh,
channeled message.
yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
like, this is
This is
just the
just what
truth.
everyone needs to hear. And I know this, so I'm going to say it.
Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
been amazing. And I'm sure you've had this experience too. Now getting to a place where it's like the right people come into your
Mm,
world. So it doesn't become a drama in that way. Like I
yes.
love it now. I'm like, oh my God, these are my
These are my
people.
people. Yeah, I
Like
agree.
this is so chill these days. Cause I'm sure
Yeah.
earlier you had the experience of like,
Oh, well, it's because I used to not really, it's like, it's the same energetic thing. Like I used to just
yeah,
like attract people that like needed to put me on a pedestal and that didn't feel good. And
yeah.
now like that doesn't happen.
Or like just wanted a result or like
Yeah. It just
whatever.
doesn't happen anymore.
No, same.
Well, I love you and
Love you.
we'll talk soon.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.